This one's for people who worry about keeping track of their children, especially when they leave the house, but don't want to give them a cell phone. And hey, let's face it, even adults struggle with concentrating on their daily chores once the cell phone takes the stage. Not to mention the potential hit on your self-esteem. One way to do it would be to attach GPS trackers and AirTags to everything they own, but that can get very expensive very quickly, but it's still a one-way solution because there's no way to know if the other person on that tracker is still there. The other alternative, aside CIA grade level equipment, is to use a smartwatch. No, not your typical smartwatch that can do everything a phone does, but one that has limited features but enough functions to get the job done. Today we're looking at the Garmin Bounce smartwatch designed specifically for kids. This offers a range of functionalities to keep kids active and connected and probably give you peace of mind. So the intended age for this watch is 6 to 12 years old, but like most things for children, depending on your child, you could give it to someone younger or slightly older and it'll still work just fine. In the box, you get the watch itself, some documentation, and a short proprietary charging cable, which is not a generic USB-C. So don't lose this, or you're going to have to go to Garmin to buy a new one. The watch aesthetics is basically a square design with rounded edges, 2 buttons that function as select and back. You can get this watch in a few options like black camel, green burst, and lilac floral. The one I have here is black with the camel straps. This just seems more utilitarian to me. The screen is a 1.3-inch LCD touchscreen display. It isn't always on, but it does turn on when you raise your wrist, depending on if you set that in the option. You can also tap the screen or tap a button to wake it up. Otherwise, it's just black because it's trying to save power. Depending on where you live and how many times it connects to LTE, this can drain your battery pretty quickly, but we'll talk more about batteries later. Other specs worth mentioning include GPS, LTE, Wi-Fi support. The Wi-Fi is used in certain locations for syncing and updating. Bluetooth also syncs to your phone, and it has a speaker and mic for audio messages and alerts. There are 2 prerequisites required to use the watch. 1 is the Garmin Junior app, and 2 is an LTE connection. First, let's talk about the Garmin Junior app. This is the hub for everything. You need to download this from your app store, and if you don't have a pre-existing account with Garmin, you'll have to set one up. After which, you can then pair the watch to the app. The Garmin Junior app is critical because you can only send and receive messages from the Bounce watch on the Garmin Junior app on your phone. So basically, your phone controls what messages gets to the watch, and you can only read messages from the watch on the app. Also, the watch can only communicate with 20 approved contacts via the app, and those contacts need to have the Garmin app to communicate with that watch. Yeah, pretty tight-lit community. So for example, if you want your spouse, partner, or mother-in-law to send messages to the watch your child has, they have to download the Garmin Junior app, open an account with Garmin if they don't already have one, and you need to approve them as the administrator as a contact on your app to allow them send messages to that watch. It sounds a bit tedious, but from a security perspective, it makes a lot of sense as it gives you control of who is talking to your child and vice versa. Now to the second prerequisite, which makes all this talking possible, is that this watch requires an active LTE subscription, which Garmin sells conveniently. You can't get it anywhere else. You cannot get it anywhere else. You have to get it from Garmin, and it grants the watch phone-free texting and voice messaging. So just a note, the Garmin Bounce watch solution doesn't work everywhere. So if you currently live in Canada, Denmark, Austria, Australia, France, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and Spain, this solution will work for you. If not, you're going to have to find other versions. You can pay for a monthly subscription or an annual subscription, which does save you some cash, but keep in mind, this does not support voice calls. So the closest you're going to get to that is recording your voice on the watch, which is about 20 seconds long, and sending that across. And that goes both ways. So that's pretty neat as well. Now, circling back to the intro about being able to track the wear of the watch, your children in this case, the watch lets you keep track via GPS tracking. So on the app, you can set boundaries, geofences, or known locations like home or school, and you can get an alert when they leave or arrive at those zones. So if your child leaves home, it'll send you a message saying your child just left home at this time. And when your child gets to school, it'll say your child arrived at school at this time, which is pretty good. And if it's a new location, which you don't have geofence to get a message, your child can do a check-in on the watch and say, hey, I've arrived, which is, again, another good way to sort of have peace of mind to say they did arrive at the location which they said they were going to. And a couple of other honorable mentions that are outside those core features of communications and tracking. The watch does offer a couple of watch faces, but do not expect to be overwhelmed by choices here. That's not the primary function. And it does do a bit of fitness challenging using the accelerometer that is inside to track your steps. It also has a few random games like Puzzle Slider for those really long car trips. Oh, yeah. You can also track chores, which gives points once completed. A friend of mine uses this to give his kids monthly allowance, a little Gestapo, but hey, what works for you? All in all, I think it's a pretty decent solution to the conundrum of not giving your child a full-fledged smartphone in the name of I want to keep tabs or be constantly in communication with my child. One major problem I would say, well, not a major problem, but not as advertised in my opinion. Garmin does claim this watch has a battery life of 2 days if worn 24/7, or about 3 days if not worn to bed. I have not gotten 2 whole days out of this watch. In fact, because again, depending on how many times the LTE towers ping your watch, you're gonna charge this watch every night, like pretty much every other smartwatch. That's not life or death, but keep that in mind. It's not, you're not going to get amazing battery life for more than 24 hours out of this watch. And that's it. I will review other options that prevent you from giving your child a full-fledged smartphone. If you think they're not ready, this may be the way to go. Let me know what you guys think about the Garmin Bounce smartwatch for kids. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.